is an ancient meme. Man, what the fuck? I don't know why my bot doesn't. There we go. I have to like start and stop the stream for it to fucking work. Okay, stream's live. We're gonna get started. Okay, I want to talk to you guys about our current roster. So we're back up to 112 since the first when we restarted our roster list. Made you guys refilled out. A lot of you guys who are newer, you only filled out one time. But before we reset it, we had 150 players on the roster. And most of the ones that have filled it out now are new recruits, so that means two things. It means we either bled off people or people are not actively participating with Discord or something in between. And that's fine. By the way, people watching stream, tell me if my mic sucks. But anyway, so the takeaway from that is this close to the launch, we want people to be participating with the Discord. We're trying to do things to encourage more activity, more engagement. You know, if you guys could think of anything, have any suggestions to improve that, please bring it up. If you have something you'd like to share with us, or if you see something we could do better. Discord is a new platform for relatively compared to like Ventrilo or something that's been on like the MMO culture for a long time, online gaming culture. So like personally, I'm still learning about the best way to set this thing up, but I think we've got a better setup than most people, most guilds, most Discord servers, and I've got a good grasp on how to use bots and things like that, but I still doesn't mean I can't learn something from you guys. So anyway, with recruitment, let's look at I want to break down kind of what the roster looks like. So if you're in Discord, by the way, you should open stream and just mute it so you can see my slides. Yeah. So I've got a chart up here, and it's just a little screen cap of our current roster sheet, which you guys can see anytime. You just go to the new to final boss channel. It's the second link down, and you can see our current roster at any given time. And also, you should be able to see our recruitment needs at any given time, and the recruitment channel and the important info section. You can see like a list of what we need and what we're trying to recruit. So if you have friends or something, you need to make class suggestions to them, you can go off of that. I actually need to update it to match what I'm about to tell you guys. So Warriors, previously on the old roster, we had a lot more people signed up for Warrior. I guess those guys all got scared away when there were so many people competing for the slots. And now we don't have any Fury Warriors. You might see 12 on the screen, but how I've done our sign up sheet is I let people sign up for Warrior. They can pick either. So if there's some Warriors who only want to tank, there's some Warriors who only want a DPS. But as a requirement and expectation for the guild, you're doing both. However, it double dips whenever it counts. So this sheet effectively reads, we have 20 tanks. Well, actually, we have 9 warriors who are willing to tank or DPS. And then Fury Warriors, we have 3 warriors who are only willing to DPS. We have 9 warriors who are willing to do either. So that means to me that I need more Fury Warriors. Fury Warriors are key, especially with Classic. They're going to be key. There's a lot of stuff coming out that just makes Melee look ridiculous, and looks better. there are certain things that are more viable than they were in private servers for warriors. I'm talking like builds like daggers or two-hand on horde specifically become much more viable with beta, with the beta information that has come out. So if you were on the fence about playing a warrior and you wanted to play a warrior, I'm not saying everybody reroll warrior, but I'm saying Fury Warrior is definitely an option for most of you, especially rogue. So if you look down at the rogue area, I've got 6 more rogues than I want. So I'd always rather have a warrior than a rogue. And this is because if I need you to, you can tank. If I need you to in a pinch, you know, you're going to be more useful to the guild. And in addition to that, the item sync that a warrior needs is actually a little bit less for DPS than rogue. A rogue has a tier set they have, and then they get all the offset items that a Fury Warrior would probably want as well. Fury Warrior, most of their best in slot items are actually crafted or from 5-mans, or you know, they're actually not too hard to get for most people. For hunters, I'm really happy that we've been able to recruit more hunters over the last bit of time. For the longest time, I only had like 3 hunters signed up, so I'm glad people are trying to play hunter. Note that this should be covered at your meeting with your class leader, but hunters are going to be expected to have alts before AQ40, and this is due to scaling. Of course, it kind of sucks that hunters are in the state they are, and in vanilla they just don't scale very well. So just a reminder, like the people that are unaware, you're gonna be expected to have an alt before AQ40 that you can swap to. That doesn't mean you don't get to play hunter after AQ40. That just means that I need a raid comp to be very, very flexible. If that scares you away from playing hunter, let's talk 101 about like what we can do in terms of what else you would be interested in playing, or we could fill that out and help you guys get into something else. I don't want to scare anybody away from the guild, for example, with what I'm saying. So let's talk about warlocks. So warlocks, we're in a good place. We are over target, but this is something that I'm not going to repeat again, but it's just something you should know. I don't expect everybody on a roster to hit 60. I don't expect everybody in a roster to hit 60 quickly, and I don't expect everybody to enjoy the classes they chose. So what that means is I'm intentionally over recruiting. And this is not necessarily meaning something like, I'm never going to get a raid spot. You know, no, this means the guild needs to be flexible. We shouldn't be worried about if one guy doesn't hit 60, are we going to have a 39-man raid, or are we going to have a 40-man raid? It's not conducive to a successful progression guild. So, of course, we need a bench. This is just part of vanilla. This is part of raiding. But how we operate that bench is not a situation you may have experienced with other guilds where you just sit on the bench the entire night. No, your class leader should be rotating you in situationally and rotating people out. So for example, if I have one player who's super geared and he only needs loot from Ragnaros, I may put that guy on standby until we get to Ragnaros. And then I go and I look at the roster, I'm like, okay, this guy, you know, we let him raid the whole night and he's not really ready to be here, but we kind of just let him in anyway. Well, let's sub him out for the guy who only needs Ragnaros loot, and then we'll make that happen. Or let's say there are too many warlocks on team 1. Well, we may ask, hey, who's willing to raid on team 2 this week? And then I would discuss with the leadership on team 2 and try to get you into that group so that we aren't competing for, you know, too many people aren't competing for the same items or something like that. So There's a lot of thought being put into how we run the roster, even with over recruiting. Don't feel like we're just throwing bodies at a problem. That's definitely the wrong way to run a guild. Um, Mages are a similar situation to warlocks in terms of numbers we need and want. Mages are significant in that early content they're gonna level faster. So when they do get to 60, we're gonna depend on them heavily for farming, and I'll discuss that in a little bit. But Shaman is a class we really need. We have one guy currently awaiting for an interview for class leader for that position. We're also waiting for a mage. Well, we just need to schedule them. Schedule those meetings with those guys. Some scheduling conflicts over the last few months for them, so we'll get something scheduled with me and Frex shortly, but you should have a class leader soon. But Shaman, specifically, the Horde is going to depend on them heavily. It's a large requirement for a raid to have mini Shaman. And not enhancement Shaman, but rest of Shaman. Not to say you won't get enhancement gear or be able to play enhanced. So if you're currently playing I don't know, like a Resto Druid or a Priest or some other class, and you would be interested in playing Resto Shaman instead of Rogue, for example, I heavily encourage you to make the swap. Priests, we're pretty good position on Priests. I like a few more just in case people burn out while leveling. Shadow Priests, similar thing. Like, I only need one in a raid comp, and I need that guy to be very dedicated. If they're not dedicated, then I'd probably rather you play a Warlock or something, or Mage, which honestly you're gonna have opportunities to top meters as a Mage and Warlock. You're not gonna have the opportunity as a Shadow Priest. That doesn't sound like something you're gonna enjoy. Then can think about it. Rest of Druids were in a good position. Could use a few more. Basically, so my goal is with this roster to hit 200 players on signed up prior to launch. That's my goal. So before August, that's what I want, and I think it's a possibility. Class leaders are stepping up recruitment, their participation in the process. But of course, if you guys have friends that you played with years ago and they're looking for guilds, I don't care if they're casual. I don't care if it's like your 14-year-old kid and you've never played WoW before. I don't mind bringing them in and getting involved. There are places for any players anywhere on the gambit, from casual to hardcore within the guild, and they all have a role to play for the guild's progression. So again, have them put an application in, have them send a message to me or some other officer. Let's get them in the guild. Guild's gonna be more fun to play in if you have people that you know and people you're friends with the long term.
People you talk to.
Yeah, that's something else. People are too quiet, like especially when they join the guild for the first time. Try to be social with them. Trying to get them involved. It's gonna be key for like launch, for keeping people around. Anyway, let's move on. So we've come up with some based on feedback from the beta, based on information coming out about difficulty of dungeons. We've come to the conclusion that dungeoning may be the best way to level for certain players and certain classes. So some players who are maybe not good levelers on their own, this will give them the ability to level quickly, more quickly than they probably would have otherwise. And if not, so like let's say they spend the first 6 hours leveling in dungeons, then they still have all those quests in the world to go do, and likely they over leveled them. For example, a warrior actually is an advantage to do green quests or something, or kill green mobs. Like, that's ideal. But anyway, so we're trying to put together players of similar schedules and optimal compositions for 5-man teams. And we're trying to, make sure that there's like a Taylor in the group and Skinner, Minor, and Urbis, whatever. We're trying to match people together. Now, this isn't to say that you can't just kind of free range level without any interference from the guild or any of my ideas or plans. But I'm saying we're trying to make it easier because a lot of you guys don't know anybody in the guild. Maybe you're brand new or whatever. And a lot of you guys know a lot of people in the guild because you've been around for years. But we're trying to bridge that gap with this as well. So, and that's really important to me that you guys be able to make friendships with people and become part of the greater community. So, one thing that you want to do with these comps is you want to form kind of a specific cleave team. So, for example, a team with 1 resto shaman and 4 warriors is ideal, or 3 warriors and a rogue, or something like that. And then for a caster cleave, it would be like 3 mages and a warlock and a priest, or with a feral druid tank, or something like that. You want to stack certain classes because of their AoE ability. Some classes like just don't have a place in this cleave thing. You don't really have cat druids, for example, don't really have a place. They're. But anyway, we're trying to come up with something. A lot of people are going to prefer to level solo, and that's fine. But I think that getting people hitting 60 in groups, not groups as in like groups in game, but like groups of people hitting 60 at the same time is going to be more advantageous for our progression than just a single player hitting 60 kind of in a staggered fashion. So we're going to have a sign-up sheet for this. I'm going to post it actually after this meeting. And then we're going to come up with some kind of way to assign people. Also, within this document, you'll be able to say, like, hey, I really like to play with Vinland because I really love memes. So then you put Vinland's name as like somebody you prefer to play with, and we'll try to match him if your schedules match up, for example. But a lot of people are taking time off for launch, and we're going to try to match everybody's schedules up when they're going to play. So when you fill this out, make sure you tell us exactly, like, I plan to play from 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. But at 6 p.m. I got to cook dinner for my family or whatever. We need to know as detailed of a schedule as you can give us. Obviously, it's a month out, so it's not realistic for some people, but as much as you can, like how many days off you have, how many hours you expect to play during those days, so we can line things up. All right. So yeah, like leveling teams may be a good idea for people, but for most people, but doing may be better for people with erratic schedules, or people who are really really fast levelers, or something like that. So a good comp, for example, would be like Priest Warrior, or Warlock Priest, or like this is good for 2 reasons. Like there's a natural synergy between a healer and a tank, so a warrior and a priest is really solid. And in addition to that, priests and warriors are notoriously slow levelers. Priests and warlocks, they can double up on dots, they can do all kinds of stuff. There's a lot more sustain involved. And while it may be slightly slower for the individual, it's probably faster for the guild, like as a whole. So yeah, you can either do a duo, you can do solo with like light dungeoning. This is probably what most people do traditionally. And then things we need to figure out still for this is we need to figure out the ideal paths for each type of team. So maybe, for example, melee avoids Zul'Farrak because most of the mobs are ranged and they're not really friendly to melee, and they go straight to Meridon and they kill certain packs of mobs in Meridon. Or casters want to avoid Meridon because there are these hydras in there that do an AoE silence, and they're not really fun for mages to deal with casters. So we got to figure all this stuff out, and I need your help to do that. We also need to come up with something like a weapon, kind of a weapon progression for leveling for warriors. So like a warrior might go from uh, the axe you get from the blood feather quest in barons to crescent staff to corpse maker to blah blah blah. We got to figure all that out for these leveling teams when we create the routing. Melee specifically have this problem. Casters can basically get away with being naked, but melee specifically need this, and that could include dungeons or quest items or whatever. And then we need to check if this is actually viable. And during the next upcoming stress test, if you aren't subscribed to Classic or to retail already, I highly suggest you go ahead and do it because, well, depending on whenever they announce this next stress test, because you might as well, right? You're going to be subscribed for launch, so you might as well subscribe now and try out the stress test. Instead of waiting until the week before. I mean, if cash is tight or something, that's different. But you should consider testing things out on the beta, getting the client downloaded, maybe trying some add-ons out, whatever. There's some advantages to it, but the main thing I want to push for is testing these cleave groups, seeing how they fit, seeing how they feel. Maybe we've got you assigned to your leveling team already, and you can see if you guys mesh, if you don't get along with people, because you're going to be spending potentially 18, the more hardcore groups, maybe spending 18 hours a day with each other. If you don't like somebody, that's a lot of time to spend with somebody you don't want to play with. But you should try to figure that out in beta, figure out if there's any problems, and then we'll move you around if there are. Okay, so let's talk about progression squads. Now, this is something that's just going to be likely just going to be at the launch of the game, not something that we're going to maintain throughout vanilla. We may pull it into the game again whenever we are doing like AQ40 Scarab Lords or something, but likely not. So we're going to be splitting the guild into kind of 3 specialized squads for launch. So for example, there's going to be people who are like DPS, who are strong farmers, like hunters and mages. You're going to be asked to do all of the guild's consumable farming for the first raid or so. And this frees up tanks from having to farm their own consumes. This frees up your healers from having to farm their own consumes. And this results in them running as many dungeons as possible, getting as many people attuned as possible, instead of traditional just free-for-all where people are, just forming pugs or whatever. The loot doesn't stay in the guild when it drops. You spend an hour in a BRD, Hand of Justice drops, and it goes to a pug. It's no good. So while we're not going to be setting up like specific dungeon teams or something like that. We're not going to have so much control over the guild that you can't go out and pug or whatever you want to do. But we're trying to organize things so that we don't end up in a situation where people aren't attuned by the time first raid day comes along or something to that effect. So here's how it breaks down. While leveling up to 60, like in your 50s, for example, or on your way to 60, there are some mobs to kill that drop like elemental fire or whatever. But basically, you're going to be gathering as many consumables, raw materials as you can. I'm also thinking about having a leaderboard for most farmed and kind of using that as a competitive incentive for people to do more. There will also be a squad of people who are specifically assigned to farming out hydroxygen rep for quintessences, and if you don't know what that means, we need to have at least 8 douses of runes within 1 core to summon Major Domo and Ragnaros. If we don't have at least, I don't know, I guess the minimum number of players that we would want is 2 to have quintessences done. And that means that they're traveling back and forth between Orgrimmar and and Molten Core over and over and over and over to grab more quintessences because it's a unique item. Ideally, we have at least 8 people for the first trade that have it done. But if we, we'll do the minimum if we have to. We'll hope for the maximum number. But anyway, the ideal players for farming quintessences are going to be PvPers, people who like PvP, but also are okay with farming. The reason being, you have a lot of competition over these mobs early on. There's a lot of problems with contesting these mobs in EPL, for example, the water elementals. Every guild's going to be going after Hydraxian rep. So ideally, you start the quest line like level 55, and you're doing this as all you level. But in addition to that, it's a long quest chain. There's a lot involved. So it's kind of difficult to ask all 40 people to do it. That's not to say I don't want you to do this quest chain, even if you're a casual raider. But it's not realistic for all 40 people to have honored rep before our first raid, probably. So we're going to assign specific people to it. Then we have the dungeon squad. The dungeon/attunement squad. These guys are in charge of getting everybody raid attuned to both Onyxia and Molten Core, with Molten Core being the very first priority. So we're gonna pair up a warlock, a healer, and a warlock, a healer, and a tank. And you're gonna spend all your time when you first hit 60 in dungeons, and we're gonna rotate people in from the farming squad to fill those last 2 spots for the dungeon. In addition, all right, Mag's gotta mute you, bud. All right, so we'll rotate people in from the farming squad, and I think we'll probably do it on we'll base it on the actual leaderboard or something. So if a guy is farmed 400 in elemental fire, we're gonna give that guy a break. We're gonna pull him into a dungeon. We're trying to get him some gear, get him attuned, and then we'll pull the next guy down on the list. And after that we'll pull the next guy down on the list, and we'll just keep going down. So it kind of gives people and it's a further incentive to farm with that leaderboard.
If I can make a recommendation, wouldn't you want to have something equivalent for the people doing Hydraxian? Feels like you're kind of leaving them out, even though they're doing something equally.
No, absolutely. That's what's going to happen. They're going to be on the leaderboard too, but it's hard to quantify because when you have the quintessence, you're done, right? So hard to quantify how many elemental fire is it really worth, and then we have to look relative to the number of items that people have farmed, because if the highest person has only farmed 100 or 50 elemental fire, I mean that's a lot, but it's not honored to Hydraxian a lot, you gotta figure out how that quantifies. But I mean, this isn't to say you're not going to get into a dungeon because you're on the farming squad unless you farm whatever. That's not the case. What I'm saying is this is a system that we're coming up with to further organize things, because really the people who you need gear on are going to be your tanks and your healers at launch. Your DPS matter, but your tanks having consumes and your healers having consumes are going to go a lot farther than if your rogues have Hand of Justice. And don't you want your tanks and your healers inside dungeons? You don't really want them farming their consumes. You want them tanking your dungeons and healing your dungeons. You don't want them to tell you, sorry, I can't tank anything right now. I got to farm for my fire protection potions. That would be a shitty situation. So we're just trying to organize things to where when we transition into a raid, it'll be more streamlined. That's all. That's the whole intent. We don't want your average raider to have to worry about their upper block or expire key. We don't want your this isn't to say there's going to be a popularity contest. We're only going to bring somebody in, that we think is going to carry. We're going to give everybody an opportunity if we can. And I mean, it depends on how this scales up to. If we have we only have one tank, healer, and warlock doing this, then it's not going to work well. But if we have like 5 sets of these teams, and then we have 20 people online farming, it's not going to be hard to rotate people in per dungeon on a per dungeon basis. Every other dungeon we're swapping people in or something like that. And something else that we started doing last night after the officer meeting, and we didn't even talk about it at the officer meeting, we decided that because of the speed at which we plan to enter Molten Core, I want the class leaders to come up with lists of items that are coming like strictly from quests. Basically, think about it as like an early pre-raid, like a pre-raid, right? So the intent is whenever you hit 60, none of these items have drop rates. They're all quests. So if you have a weak slot, what item you can guaranteed have if the raid is under 3 hours, you can go knock that out. Like let's say you hit 60 3 hours before raid time, and you have a level 20 weapon equipped or something as a caster. Well, you should be able to look at this item list and be like, oh, okay, this item comes from a quest. I can go grab it and be done before raid and have something real in that slot. So we're trying to come up with a list of gear that people are able to just be done with just questing, and they may be able to pick a lot of these items up while leveling even. There's a lot of really solid items for these kind of lists would be obtained during your late 40s or early 50s. So, and that's not to say you're not dungeoning while you level either. It's just when you get to the point where you're able to start farming for consumables, that's what you're focusing on if you're on that farming squad. And of course, we're going to give people choices on what they do. If you want to be part of the farming squad or the quintessence squad, that'll be up to you. Or even like, I don't mind if healers end up as part of the farming squad or whatever, or tanks. It's up to you what you want to do. We're just trying to organize things so that we transition into raids very smoothly, and we have somewhat of an advantage over a guild that just lets people do whatever they want and hopes for the best.
How many squads do you want to have, like, per group, like progression group, and whatnot?
So for farming, I mean, that's going to be the majority of players. For dungeons, it's as many groups of 3 I can set up, or I mean even groups of 2. If I only have a healer and a tank, then that's acceptable. But and then quintessences are going to be the least number of players, just because it's an unforgiving grind. People are probably not interested in it, and I only really need 8 of them. But if I can get more people to do it, then great. If I can't, then so be it. So you're looking at most of the guild being farmers, a few people being dungeon people, and very few people being quintessence people.
Thank you.
This is something that you'll sign up for, what you want to do, in that same document that we're going to put out for the leveling squads, or for the leveling teams, like the cleave teams or whatever for dungeons. So make sure you, if you don't understand what we're talking about, then please get with me one-on-one. I'll try to explain a little bit more in detail to you. Now, something that's going to happen in the near future, there are going to be these class leader role meetings. So the melee, all the Fury Warriors, Rogues, Hunters, you guys are going to have a class meeting. Mages, Warlocks, Shadow Priests, y'all are going to have a class meeting, etc. And they're going to be scheduled sometime between now and launch, but they'll be on the calendar sometime within the next 2 weeks. And what it is a presentation by each class leader about what their expectations are for each class. They'll be recorded, uploaded to YouTube, and you'll be able to if you're not able to attend, you'll be able to watch it later. But basically, we got to talk to you about certain quests that are key to grab while leveling, that are going to help you during progression, certain items that you should never vendor, for example, because they have progression purposes, but they don't really seem like they do while you're leveling. So there's some like obscure trinkets and weapons and other random items that have purposes. We're also going to have something for PvP. So there are some very PvP oriented items that have purposes that normally you would never think that they have a reason to exist. Basically, we're trying to protect you from making a mistake with items and knowing, like, we're trying to teach you like what items to keep in your banks, stuff like that. In addition to that, we're going to talk to you about some changes we found in the beta, that by theory crafters. There are a lot of upheavals in the tanking meta for itemization. There are a lot of upheavals in the melee meta as well for itemization. Casters in general are going to stay traditional with how they gear up and stuff, but healers may change even. That's to be seen still. But just in general, these are going to be very informative meetings that I highly encourage you guys to partake in. If you can't be there, that's understandable, but like I said, it'll be recorded. That's the perfect time to get to know your class leader, get to know other people in your class, start talking more in your role channels. That's something that I really want to advocate for. I want you guys to start talking about your classes. If you guys see something cool, read about something cool in some class Discord, bring it up in your role channel. Share it with the rest of the guild, because the only result is that players can get better. If they choose
That's
not.
true.
If people choose not to, then that's their choice. So
Caster meeting is July 30th, next Tuesday at the same time that we start these meetings.
And all these will be in the schedule channel for you to sign up for. I actually want to take a second to talk about the schedule channel. So if you click on it in Discord, I'm going to pull it up on stream. So this is what we're going to do for signups for raids as well. So there's 3 emojis on there, right? You hit check if you're going, question mark if you don't know if you're going to go, X if you're not going to go. Well, for raid meetings, there's also going to be class icons up there. Or I'm sorry, for raid times. So, for example, I'm going to have all these icons, and then you're going to click which icon you're going to show up on. So, I'm making a few right now just for an example you guys can look at. Okay, so you got a Frost Mage, you got an Affliction Warlock, or a SM Rune Warlock, you got a Fury Warrior, and you got a Prot Warrior on there, right? So people are reacting with what they're showing. The raid leaders in the guild, the raid leaders, the class leaders, guild leader can know what to expect for that raid night in terms of what we need and what we can prepare for. And of course, it's not going to be perfect because people have things come up, whatever, but this is something we're going to emphasize for the entirety of us playing the game in Classic. So whenever there's a sign up on the in the schedule channel, you need to make sure you hit both the either you're going, you're not going, or you don't know if you're going, and then you also need to hit with your class. And you guys kind of saw like a test drive of this system this week earlier, or even last week with the practice raids on the private server. And that's how it's going to be for Classic launch as well. And we're working out kinks and stuff, but anyway, you guys don't have to join Gilded if you don't want to. I don't plan on using it for anything. I plan on using Discord for everything, and you can if you want to. But all of the terms of checking if people are going or whatever, are all going to be done through Discord, and if you're reacting to this event, because I can check a list of people who are going. But anyway, so back to Raider needs for prior to Classic. So something I need you to work on. I need you to learn the loot table differences between each phase. And that goes for both dungeons and raids. I need you to learn itemization changes that are going to happen with your class based on the beta. And I need you to come up with a best in slot wish list for what items you want each phase. So what that means is something that class leaders can refer to and know, like, okay, this guy really wants they want BRE. They want to get Blade Reaver's Edge or Bone Reaver's Edge, okay? So, okay, this guy, that's what he wants to have before phase 2. So let's try to make that happen. Or this guy really wants Choker of the Fire Lord before phase 3. Okay, we can try to make that happen. If we don't know what we don't know what you want, we don't know what we should be voting on, so we're just going to go with what's best for the guild and what's best for your class. But if there's something that's kind of out of the ordinary or something like that, if you don't make it known and communicate it with your class leader, they have no idea that they need to be advocating for you to get that item. So, but that is going to depend on you to learn both what items matter to other classes within your role. So if you're a warlock and you're rolling on trying to take something that specifically like always goes to mages, probably a conversation you guys are going to have with your class leader about. And this is just so nobody's expectations are unmet or somebody's feelings get hurt, you know, about their wish list not being followed or whatever. But this is just a guide for class leaders to know how to vote for you. In addition, for you to learn your class's loot table and learn the itemization of your class. Absolutely. So somebody from stream just asked, is it okay to give priority to PvP items on the full biz wish list? Absolutely, it's fine. And that's kind of the point. That's kind of the point of this, is we want to know what you want. And there's actually a class or a class leader position for PvP in the guild. So make sure, in addition to your normal class leader, you're sharing it with that player. So
there's also like an element of future responsibility. Like if you tell me you're PvPing as a mage, I'm not going to give you shoulders or boots because I assume you're going to get what, rank 7 or 10 and get it yourself, right?
yeah, so, and this is like I said, this is like something that's going to be moderated by your class leader. And if, like, let's say I tell you, like, let's say you're going for an item for PvP and you're completely adamant, like, about getting that item, and you completely disagree with the class leader's idea about what you should be getting, even for PvP or whatever, that's fine. Like, you guys can disagree, but you need to have an understanding of why he's telling you that that is not the correct choice. He doesn't, like, you should know, and even if it's, let's say the class leader's wrong, even, that's completely fine. You know, these things, you can bring it up the chain, you can bring it to me or whatever if you feel like it's a big enough problem. But most of what I'm trying to say is that if you guys are in disagreement or something like that, or you want this item specifically for PvP, just know the correct way, or the more consensus view on that particular item or piece. So Twomble, so that's something that's kind of that's actually something that's changing with beta. So in the beta test, and I'm gonna take a second to talk about DPS warriors for a second, or for a moment. in the beta they found that Slam is proccing Wind Fury. This has not been the case on any private server, and it's huge. What this means is that two-hander is likely the way to play Warrior, especially early on. And honestly, most people are probably going to end up playing two-hander for DPS Warriors. Something else that has been found is that Sunder Armor is proccing Wind Fury. You know, all these different. Basically, if it's an instant that requires a weapon to be equipped to use, it can proc Wind Fury. So, especially early on, when you don't have threat stats, tanks are going to be using slower weapons than traditionally. So that means that prot warrior is coming after your Blade of Brutality, potentially. Something else has been found, for example, is that 5 weapon skill equates to 2% hit and 30% increased damage on glances. 8 weapon skill results in 40% damage increase on glances and the same amount of hit. So what that means is rogues, your Age Core Leather Gloves are now going to go to tanks, and so are your daggers. That might be bad news for you. But yeah, it's gonna overall help the guild's progression and overall help the raid. So that's something that never happened in private servers. That's something that never occurred to people. That's not to say you're not gonna get daggers or you're not gonna get Age Core Leather Gloves. It's just these items now have another purpose. So just be aware of the changes that are happening. Something else, example, on private servers, Bone Reaver's Edge is like the weapon, right? Like it's the weapon people want. It's like whatever Ash Candy was back in the day, that's what Bone Reaver's Edge is in modern WoW. However, they've discovered that bosses only have 3700 armor, and if certain armor debuffs are stacking in Classic, Annihilator and Fairy Fire, we don't know. For example, if those 2 debuffs stack, you can actually push the boss's armor to 0, which makes the proc on Bone Reaver's Edge not do anything when it procs, because the boss already has 0 armor. So Bone Reaver's Edge all of a sudden becomes a lot worse than Untamed Blade, for example, or even Spinal Reaper. These are things that you guys need to get informed about. Your class leaders can talk to you about these things if they know about them, but I highly recommend jumping into the class-specific Discords and reading what these guys have to say, because these as many guides as I can compile in this Discord. This is the source. This is where I'm getting all the information. So absolutely join these Discords, learn something. All right, so at this point, I'm gonna open up the meeting for questions or whatever feedback. If anybody has any.
Can we get like a channel in Discord that links to all the other class Discords for Classic?
Yeah, I can do that.
Thanks.
Okay, somebody.
Oh,
Go ahead.
okay, so let's say I'm rolling something at launch that I may end up disliking, or I want to play. I have an alt at 60, and eventually I want to bring that to raids. How does that work out? Am I get told, nope, get it to BIS, and then we'll maybe bring it to 1, see how you do on it? Or is it, yeah, when we're in farm status, we'll try to gear it up, see what we can.
Depends what it depends on what the class is, right? So if so you're asking about alts, right? So you're asking about how quickly you can get an alt in the guild. Am I correct?
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Okay, so ideally, if you're playing like something the guild needs, you could be rotated in between bosses from launch. So, like for example, if you're playing a hunter, and then you're playing a shaman for an alt, and we really need resto shaman, you could be playing the hunter for like few bosses and then rotating the shaman for other bosses. Like I don't care as long as there's a raid spot to fill. We can rotate people in. You can raid on both. We're gonna have shortly after launch, whenever maybe 2 or 3 weeks after launch, we're gonna end up in a situation where we have a lot of people at 60, a lot more than we did in the first 2 weeks of the game, because we're not requiring everybody to rush. So the second raid team will form fairly early on, and you'll be able to raid with both those characters in both different teams if you have the time to do so. If you don't have the time, then we'll be able to make it happen, if we can. But if you're trying to play like a rogue alt and a fury warrior alt, I mean those fill the same positions and roles within the raid, and I'm probably gonna ask you to pick one or something like that because they share loot. So basically, you're doubling up your loot sync there, which we should try to avoid.
If warriors are going two-hander, though, they don't have to worry about sharing weapons.
Yeah, but you're still sharing rings, trinkets,
Right.
belts, gloves, whatever. Somebody from the stream asked me, how slow will raids be when you start replacing people mid-raid? So ideally, at the start of the raid time, we have an idea of who's on bench. I mean, people could log in mid-raid or whatever and then join the bench. But this is something that class leaders are coordinating between bosses. So let's say I have this one guy, he's late, okay? But it's somebody that I want in the raid. And I'll say in officer chat, I'll say, hey, class leader, figure out somebody to swap for, say, I want them to be there specifically for Golemag. And we're at Shazra. So we have all that trash clear in order, so we have that window of time to figure it out. So then the class leader comes back to me, let's say 3 pulls prior to Golemag. All right, here's your replacement. Here's who's gonna step out. Okay, pull the other guy in. We kill the boss, or we get to the boss. We summon the guy. He's already at the dungeon entrance because he's had enough time from the trash. We've killed Sulfuron. We've cleared all that trash, and now we're at Golemag. So he has had time to go from Orgrimmar, Earth to Kargath, walk up the Blackrock Mountain. Be ready. Zone in. Just sitting at the entrance. And then when he zones in, the other guy hurts or logs off or whatever. He zones in, we summon him, we buff him, we pull. Pretty seamless. There are situations where it can be slow, but it's usually worth the time wasted, if that's the case. There are some times where a player is just wasting our time, like if we're sitting around waiting for a guy to zone in and he's AFK or something, I'm likely not going to wait for him. I'm just going to pull the boss. Or something, something of that sort. AFKs, especially if you're on the bench, okay, I understand you're not in the raid. I don't expect you to be at the computer all the time. But if I try to message you and you're AFK, you may have missed your opportunity. So it's something you have to be aware of. Yeah, I mean, it's always a problem rotating people, but when we are deep into farm status, I'm saying AK-40's out and we're doing a Molten Core, and there are still raiders who need something from Molten Core, like one specific item or 2 specific items, what's going to happen is a Molten Core is probably going to be filled with mostly casual players or alts or whatever. They're going to be filled with less than optimal, you're not going to have the same exact clone of a raid in Molten Core as you're going to have an AK-40. And this is by design. You rotate people in and out. So I'm not going to ask my main tank, who's tanking all these 20-mans on off nights and upper Blackrock Spires, getting people attuned 5-mans. I'm going to say something like, I have for this Molten Core, I have 60 people who want to go. So who wants to sit? and then people will raise their hand, and I'll drop them, and then I'll ask something like, okay, who wants who needs loot from what bosses, and I'll ask them to message me, and then or they'll message their class leader, and I'll be like, okay, you'll rotate in for Magmadar, you'll rotate in for Golem, you'll rotate in for Ragnaros, and these will all be predetermined. And what you'll do is you'll just sit outside BRD ready to go. I mean, outside Molten Court ready to go. I mean, this will even happen in Nax. We'll rotate people in. The Hunter alt thing, for example, there'll be situations where I tell Hunter, okay, get off your alt, hop on your Hunter, we're gonna get you a piece of gear tonight, or something like that. And this is just, there's gonna be anywhere from, on any particular raid team, there's probably gonna be anywhere from 5 to 20 people on a bench at any given time, and that's ideal because it gives us flexibility with our raid comps. It's actually really healthy for a guild to have a bench. It may not be the happiest thing for players, but if your goal in this game is for progression, kind of understand why it is. And don't think that like, oh, these guys are officers, so they're not going to sit, that, or I've sat myself from raids. I've sat officers, I've sat class leaders, whatever. It doesn't matter. Like, if I have the ability to, I'm going to make sure the people that are in the who need to be in the raid or in the raid, and I'm going to give people time off the bench. Don't expect to always be on the bench. Expect to be on the bench if you're late to raid, if you didn't get your Dire Maul buffs on time, if you spent too much time in Dire Maul after invites were going out. These things are going to result in you being on the bench. But I mean, I'm not going to punish you further. This is you've kind of done something to yourself by being late. I didn't tell you, I didn't make you be late. Some extenuating circumstance in real life, or your own irresponsibility has led you to be late. You've already punished yourself. Nobody's going to hold you accountable unless it's like a consistent issue. Anyway, I hope that kind of illustrates kind of the mindset and idea on this topic. Ideally, like, we're able to, for farm content where players don't need any loot, we're able to give those people the night off and pull in people that don't typically get to go to like Nax or AQ40 or BWL into Molten Core to get gear, so they can end up in the same position. Something that people don't realize is, as well, is that when you're raiding a player, like when you're raiding for 6 months, a year, your lifespan as a raider, just because of real life or whatever getting in the way, goes down like exponentially. So there's always a constant turnover in a guild. So, and this is something that, this is why I'm advocating for people not to rush to 60 if they don't want to. Because by the time you get to 60, it's likely the rogue that was filling that raid spot, he may have either left the guild or quit the game or decided that vanilla is not that fun or whatever, and now that position's open. And if we can stagger leveling, we have less impacted raid slots in that way. So everybody, if you guys are consistent enough, you always get that your opportunity to shine. It's just being patient, not being flexible, and we can meet you in the middle.
With regards to split runs, is there any interest in like running splits like during phases 3, 5, or 6, possibly, just to increase the rate at which we gear up? And if we don't have 40 people interested, is it possible that we can run what I would call a partial split? That is, we could have, like, let's say you have 60 people, and for the sake of argument, let's pretend they're all going to have 100% attendance. and 20 of these people each have an alt that they're happy to play and they're willing to raid twice, and 40 people have one character that they want to raid on all the time. Is it possible, like, for example, we put 20 of the people, the 20 people who have 2 characters in one raid with 20 of the people who have 1 character, and so on for the second raid, and maybe this would offer the opportunity for like our mains to get more loot and our alts to get less loot without really negatively impacting people who play on exactly 1 character.
It takes a lot to gear up those characters, though. So
I have
it's
something that I'm kind of tabling that I had planned to present to Kurthos a little bit down the road, but it also ties heavily into EPGP runs.
So split running. So of course in vanilla you have the original lockout system, so you can't do exactly what people do in retail now with split runs. You have to kind of be clever about it. So for example, in Nixia, something that people do in private servers is when they get the boss low enough, they hearth out before it dies so they don't get locked to the instance. We don't know if this works in Classic, for example. If we're talking about split running and just running less people, like doing a 30-man, like 2 30-man molten cores, for example, or 2 25-man molten cores, or something like that, it all depends on how much time we have that given week. When we're specifically, our goal is specifically Scarab Lord, and running as many molten cores in a BWLs as possible, I would say yes, this is something that we'll probably do. When we have Nax 40 to do, and we only have a limited number of raid days to do it, and we're trying to progress new bosses every night, it may be more unrealistic, especially considering that we have 3 sets of 2 20-man lockouts per week per raid team. So we're talking total, if we look at all the raid teams by the time we're in Nax, that's a lot of different 20-mans we have to get through. There's a lot of lockouts that we need to progress through per week, and the 20-mans are key to getting people geared up. So while I'm open to the idea, I'm not sure if it's a realistic for what we're doing. I mean, the guild is basically structured around being a split run in the first place, right? We have multiple raid teams clearing content on the weekly. So the system exists already within the guild. If we're going to split that further, that's hard to say, and it's going to be situational, and we're going to make that call like on a case-by-case basis. I think like something that we're going to do, for example, is okay, all of the rogues on Team 1 have Viscags, but none of the rogues on Team 2 have Viscags, so we're going to rotate. We're going to ask which rogues are able to swap to the other team. This is essentially split running, right? Because you're trying to get more people geared more quickly. This is in its essence the same plan, same idea. Doing content with less people, if we can viably do it, yeah. If we can't, if content's super easy, then it's definitely more viable than not, right? So we're gonna try to make it happen. If we're not able to, because we're gonna set a team up for failure, then it's not something we're gonna pursue. In terms of alternative raids, things like gold DKP runs and stuff like that, those things will exist as well. And there may be weeks where I say, okay, Team 1 is not running Molten Core this week. Instead, we're gonna have like a Molten Core GDKP that anybody can show up to, something like that. And then if you guys want to raid Molten Core still this week in like a loot council setting, you can go to Team 2's Molten Core. If you don't want to go to that, you want to go to the Gold DKP, feel free to. I don't know. there's a lot of different variables here. Anybody else have any questions?
Can we have a suggestions tab in the Discord for stuff to be added?
That's I mean, you can, for now you can put it in the ask an officer section, but if not, then yeah, or if when I have time to, I'll add a channel for that. I have 2 channels I need to add now.
Gotcha.
I don't know about that website. So Helsing just linked a website that I guess you're gonna use for making like previous lists or whatever. 2 tools that I found that are really, really useful and something that I want people to use probably. One is called 60upgrades.com, and you have to register for it, and you have to verify your email, which I know people are gonna roll their eyes about, but pretty comprehensive list, and it's very intuitive tool, and it lists all stats out and things like that. So I would say this is a really, really good website. And then additionally, if you're trying to research items, itemization.info is really solid. In addition to that, in the Discord, we have a bot that's linked to itemization.info. So if I type rock F in brackets, Rock Fury pops up. If I type boner in brackets, Bone Reaver's Edge pops up. So you can link things in Discord. You can see this in Ask on Officer channel. I just did it. Some things you gotta be a little bit more specific for, and it's Nell Therian Steer.
Rip.
I think you tried to type Nef tier, but it's Nell Therian Steer. So anyway, yeah, like these are some resources you guys can use that are pretty popular right now.
Wait on you, Autumn.
But anyway, all right.
Maybe add like a bot spam channel, Kurtha. Like for this, you know,
It might be a good
for the
idea.
items.
Somebody asked me in direct message if we're gonna go EU or US. We're in an American guild. We will go US. Though we're gonna have a lot of European players, more than probably most American guilds. So if you want your fellow EU brains,
Silver cat.
they'll exist. We are shedding our Greek skin, and we are now an American guild. Greek players are no longer allowed. I'll chalk that up with being ogres. That's a joke, by the way. We used to have, back in the private server scene, we used to have like a majority Greek player base, which led to some interesting situations.
Did their government run out of money for the internet?
I'll just say that they typically played it at net cafes.
Oh,
I was close.
Currently we're facing a invasion from the north from Canadians. They've breached the wall, and we're in full meltdown. We've had, over the last 2 weeks, I've had like 6 Canadians join the guild, and we're basically, it's a nightmare.
Sorry, I was gonna say I'm Canadian too. If you didn't know.
6-7, dude. That's not a nightmare.
Oh, I'm Canadian too, if you couldn't tell.
My condolences.
You could be Canadian. You could be a Mexican gangbanger.
Sound like a fucking leprechaun.
That's true.
I don't
Let's
know.
go
There's
for
not a lot
Rip
of,
A.
A's in the.
I'm Canadian too, if you couldn't tell.
Um,
I'm the worst kind
I'm
of
Canadian too.
Canadian.
I say, I'm Canadian over here.
I'm a French Canadian. That's the worst kind.
We
Uh,
baguette.
I agree, dude. I in retail TBC, I don't know how many French Canadian warlocks I ran into, but all French Canadians seem to play warlock.
You're French Canadian. Are you really Canadian though? You're kind of just Quebecan or
Alright,
what?
we've gone off the rails here,
Yeah.
guys.
That's
Yes,
a good
we have.
question.
Anyway.
I have another question.
Okay, go ahead.
So, for our general 3-hour raid, how much time do you expect people to be spending having to farm consumables, world buffs, and the like?
You should have your consumables before the raid, but world buffs should be done in under, like, ideally they're done in under 15 minutes to maximize timer on the buffs. It depends on what buffs are out and what are available. So, for example, right now we expect Direwall obviously is in phase 2, so we're not getting those buffs. And Onyxia Head may be on loot tables in phase 2. So if that's the case, the only buff we have is Warchief's Blessing and Songflower. So that should take you under 10 minutes to get. Start off the raid in Orgrimmar, pop head, fly to Felwood, or start the raid in Felwood and portal to Orgrimmar, and then Hearth to Kargath, and we're at the raid in under 10 minutes. Or maybe even under 5 minutes. When we're doing world buffs, you throw up full buffs, so you're throwing up your forts, your intellects, your Mark of the Wilds. All those assignments and stuff will be done on a spreadsheet that people will be referenced to throughout the raid. So, like, before the raid even starts, there will be a spreadsheet up, and as we fill the raid, the class leaders will be typing in people's names in slots, and that'll be your assignment for the whole night. And if your class leader changes something, they'll tell you check it. But this should make things way smooth, and there should be no question like what you're assigned to. Everybody can see it. Everybody will be able to look at it. You'll just have it. If you have a second monitor, you just have it open on that. You have your game open. Maybe Discord, whatever, and you'll be able to see that. But consumables, you should even when you're Nax, like unless you're a tank, you should be able to farm all your consumables in about 4 hours a week, depending on how you make gold. 4 hours a week, so you can split that over 7 days, and that's not too bad, considering. 3 hours. During those 3 hours, it's all business. Like I don't mind like joking around, but like keep it to raid chat. Don't use voice chat for it, especially when things are going on. We are a guild that's trying to push clear times. We're not a guild that is just looking to farm content. This is a competitive guild. That's not to say that we don't have room for people who aren't competitive, but we're going to teach you how to be competitive. And that's kind of our jobs as leadership to do.
So when you say consumables, what kind of consumables do you need for every raid? Like everyone.
Bruh.
It depends on what raid we're doing. So, for example, if we're doing AQ40, obviously we don't need fire protection potions.
Wants to know about flasks, and we don't know about flasks because no one knows how that economy is going to work.
Yeah,
because that's what I mean. Like, do we need titans every fucking raid and stuff like that?
I mean, the expectation would be handed down by the class leaders, but no, you probably don't. Like, Flask of Titans is kind of unrealistic for a melee to be popping every raid. That's not to say you're not doing that the first night we're in AQ40 or the first night we're in Axe or something like that. Or, or like, let's say we're going to go after Lotheb or something, for example. Or, a particular boss where having a higher HP pool is going to be significant. yeah, you'd be asked to use Flask for that. But no, you're not going to need it every night. It'll be optional, and like, of course, if you're a melee and you're a madman, you're flasking every night. Like, class leaders are gonna notice, and they're gonna consider that for loot council decisions. So, in terms of being competitive, yeah, there is an incentive to be like overconsumed, but is it something that's gonna be required? No. Something that was found during the beta that's different than private servers. Black Lotus doesn't spawn in Alterac Valley. Like, that sentence alone changes how the meta works for Flasks completely. And not only that, but PvP ranking in general. So when you're talk about consumables and flasks, we have to look at the timer, like the cooldown timer on respawns. We have to look at if we have a crafter in the guild, or what the going rate of materials are. We're not going to ask you something unrealistic. But that's not to say we're not going to, like, if we tell you a month away from AQ40 launch, you should have these consumables prepped, you should have this this resistance gear prepped with enchants, and you don't meet those expectations, then we're going to hold you accountable for that.
How long do you think it'll take for that to happen? Like the AQ gate opening?
AQ, I don't know. It's complete. There's just too many variables
I mean,
in
you
there.
think it'll be 6 months, or you think it'll be a year? I don't.
Oh, are you talking about like Blizzard releasing the content?
Correct. Correct. What's your opinion on that? I know no one has an exec.
I think vanilla will take 2 years. I think that's a good guess. And then if you break it down further,
So AQ is one and a half probably.
consider that I think Nax released the summer before TBC, so like June or July, and TBC released in January. So maybe 6 months before that. So maybe December of like next year or something like that.
But do you think they will release Nax on the same schedule, considering that most people didn't even see Nax in vanilla? Do you
No.
think they will do the same?
No, of course, there's chances that they don't, but it's just a guess, you know. I mean, you're asking me to guess, so that's one.
Fair enough. I do think that you're extremely reasonable when you're saying like that we have time to prepare for AQ and stuff like that. That's extremely reasonable. If people don't have the stuff in time when you're given time, they should be punished. Absolutely.
Well, it's not necessarily about
fuck.
about punishment as much as it's about, like, you're not being a team player. That's what it boils down to, right? It's not. It's about, like, I'm not going to punish you as much as I'm just going to reward the people who do what they're asked to do. That makes sense. I'm not somebody who's going to punish. I'm not big on punishment. Or something like that. Like, I don't think it does anything. I think there's a certain amount of discipline from realizing, like, I fucked up, and the other guys didn't fuck up, and they were rewarded for not fucking up. You know?
I mean, that goes without saying. I mean, the people who are doing what they're supposed to be doing are probably going to be, you know, in the group at that point.
Yeah, I mean, but I don't like heavy-handed approaches about these things. There's a difference though. Like, we're talking about when somebody is being overly toxic, or I mean, like, behavioral problems. These are different. But just playing the game, like, this is what if I say, like, you're loot banned, something like that. What does that do to a player? It demoralizes them. It demotivates them. It's not, you know, if I loot ban a player, if I tell somebody they're loot banned because they face pull a boss, what is that, you know, what makes them want to be part of this guild? What makes, you know, what's my job as their guild leader? So what I should really be doing is I should be trying to find a way to motivate them to change their behavior or change their attitude or whatever. I should be using positive reinforcement versus negative reinforcement. That's not to say I'm not going to call you out if you do something stupid, but that's probably the furthest extent. And I'll reward good role models and not reward bad role models. It's pretty simple. But with consumables, you have all of phase 1, where the only thing you're doing one raid night a week for probably when the content's on farm, under 3 hours, under 2 hours, under 1 hour, depending on the content tuning. You have nothing to do. You don't have a PvP system. You don't have world bosses. You don't have you're farming your pre-raid and you're farming consumables, leveling alts. That's all you're doing. That's it. So if you're not ready for AQ40 by the end of phase 1, I mean, of course, depending on how fast phase 1 changes to phase 2, but you should have all this shit done you have all that time. You should have all the raw materials you need for your Nature Resist gear before AQ40 ever comes out or any of those patterns are even available. You should have your Nixie Scale Cloak pattern, like raw mats. You should have that done as soon as you're done pre-rating. You should have all your PvP consumables ready to go before phase 2 ever comes out. Like, these are things you guys should be thinking about and planning for. And we're, of course, going to announce them beforehand, but if you're not taking this, taking all this information and writing it down or studying or figuring it out, and you're playing, and you have free time to do so, you're wrong. Like, if you're just messing around, like, playing League of Legends or whatever all day, playing Hearthstone, like, you could probably be, especially if you don't know vanilla, you have better uses for your time, and it's going to benefit you. It's going to make you more competitive, and it's going to make this guild better. So I definitely cannot make this statement any more paramount. You have a month before launch. A month. A little bit more than 30 days.
I think like at the start, there's going to be a big rush for people getting to 60 and getting the first molten core and gearing up the characters. I'd probably recommend that people, once they get past that point, they take it easy for, like, you don't want to do all that shit, then rush into doing all your reputation grinds and you're getting your enchanting recipes and stuff like that. You definitely don't want to go too crazy and burn yourself out. That's basically what I'm trying to get at, because there's going to be a lot of time to kill between now and, real content and stuff like that.
And absolutely, and that's so absolutely. I'm not trying to sound like contradictory when I say that I agree with what Frex says. Now, I'm just saying, like, even if you're not doing those things, you should be aware of what you need to be doing, or what needs to be done before each phase. If you don't know, if you have questions, that's what the class leaders are here for. That's what I'm here for. That's what Frex here for. Ask questions. If you need an idea of, like, what you should be going for in what order, whatever, that's what we're here to guide you guys and teach you. The last thing I want to happen is for somebody to rush to 60 because they want to be the part of the first molten core clear and burn themselves out trying to gear up after leveling. I'd rather that same player take their time to level, enjoy the content, hit 60 at their leisure, and be playing with us for the next 6 months to 2 years. That's what I prefer to happen for everybody. Molten core, we're not getting world first. We're not getting US first. Those are going to go to whatever guild zones into the raid instance first. The content is not hard. Think about this like if you played Wrath. Think about this as if you were trying to rush for Nax 25 world first. Firstly, not going to get it. Secondly, is it worth getting in the first place? Was Nax 25 such a prestigious instance that you wish you got it? Alright then, that's basically where we're at with that. Thanks, Potenza, with the sub, with Twitch Prime. Thanks.
You're right.
I mean, Molten Core and Nixie are that's the only content we have to do for anywhere from 3 to 6 months potentially. And we're gonna be rating 1 day a week, and we're gonna be clearing it in under 3 hours, under 2 hours, under 1 hour. So, do you need to really be in a hurry? Probably not. Any other questions? Anything?
I mean, I just want to reiterate on what you're saying. Like, I mean, everyone should know what they should be doing. I mean, that's all there really is to it.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Vanilla is an open book test. There's no surprises. I mean, it could be surprises based on like client versus private server knowledge or whatever, but you're right. There's nothing special or nothing hidden about this. So I want to, if nobody's got any other questions, I want to talk to you guys about our practice server raids. So we've had some like conflict with the other guild during the raids, and it's made people uncomfortable and made these practice raids unfun, and you know, and it's kind of been a detriment to what we're trying to do there. So we're actually going to cut ties with that guild. So if you want to stay in their Discord, okay, but you can leave their Discord at this point. We have a new server that we're going to play on, likely, and you can you'll be able to create a character there. It's basically the same concept, just we won't have GM commands, so things are going to be a little bit slower. But honestly, that's fine. We're still going to be doing practice runs, and I highly encourage people to go to those, especially if they're new to vanilla, or especially if they've never played their class at 60 before and during vanilla. And this does a couple things. It lets you test drive the character you're going to play, which could save you so much time and effort. You know, if you end up leveling a character to 60 and you end up not liking the character, that really sucks, right? And I don't want you to quit because you decided to pick the wrong character at level 1. That really would suck. So this server will be like a instant 60 server. You'll have access to pre-raid level gear, and then we're going to go and do dungeons, and we're going to do raids. And you guys can do anything from practice your leveling builds to practice speedrunning low levels to practice doing dungeons together. You know, whatever you want to do, you'll have the ability to do on this practice server. But we're gonna keep doing these things on Mondays at the same times, and well, I'm sorry, we're gonna do it at our normal raid times at 30 minutes earlier, and then the whole intent is to teach you guys the content so we don't have to teach it when we get to release. Now, I need more people to show up than have been. We've consistently been getting about 20 people from our guild to show up, and I need that number to be closer to 40 so that we can have a realistic rate. If we can't, then we could do something like break down into multiple Upper Blackhawk Spire runs or something to that extent. But no matter what, for the next every Monday until Classic comes out, that's what we'll be doing. So you guys can start thinking about that for calendars, getting in the mindset for vanilla, and prepping for Classic.
Do you still have 9 warriors?
9 warriors. No, like not everybody's showing up, and probably can convince one of these warriors to play something else if you feel like there's too many warriors. I mean, there's the consumables in this server are free. Like you have infinite numbers of consumables. You have infinite, like all the gear is free. You're instant 60, so it's not hard for somebody to swap characters or whatever.
Yeah. Cause I'm gonna main warrior, and I don't really want to play something else because I want to practice warrior, right? And I don't join because I saw last time you had like 9 warriors already, so it's just like pointless.
It's not, but it's not pointless because actually in the last Molten Core raid we didn't have enough warriors, and in a raid comp, it's not uncommon for half your raid roster to be warrior, like half of your. So, couple things. Your melee groups, you only want like 3 rogues. The rest of your melee are warriors, and you have 3 melee groups or 4. So take that into consideration. We only had 2 DPS warriors, whereas I want like 9 in a raid.
Oh yeah, because I saw like 6 signed up.
Yeah,
So
but
I was like,
right, but I understand you're European, so it may be harder like to justify logging in at like 2 in the morning just to not get a raid slot. But if you show up, you're probably getting a raid slot, even if it means that we have a suboptimal comp. It's not like TBC where like a suboptimal comp will just completely ruin your raid progression or something like that. And the whole intent is behind these practice runs is to just get people familiar with the game, with the metagame, and with their class.
can I PM you about other people if you want like more people to just help you in the practice runs to get
Yeah.
like more people in? Can I do that?
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I definitely welcome anybody from Immersion to join for that
These
stuff.
guys are probably not from Immersion though, or actually they are not. But if you need people, could I
Yeah,
just PM
yeah.
you? Yeah.
Well, of course, and especially if they have feedback to give about how we're running things or like their opinions on stuff, because I always want to see other perspectives.
Yeah, these is like legacy people, so
it's cool.
Yeah.
Definitely if I have problems filling raids, I'm gonna reach out to Immersion anyway, because I mean, if we have close guild ties to any guild, it's actually that guild because they split off from us back in the day. So hey, if you guys have the dip, that's fine. But I'm actually getting to the end here. So if anybody has any other questions or anything else they want to bring up, feel free to. If not, I'm gonna probably call it.
Thanks, guys.
Looking at because I was curious. I was just looking at the Wowhead Classic stuff. I posted a link in the social tab. There was a article released on Wowhead Classic that shows all the items that will be available in each different phase, including raid items and quest items. Every single item that will be available in each phase. So for phase 1, if you want to see what items will be available and what items won't be available, it's actually good to look through that possibly. That's saying it to everybody, including our officers, because that gives us a more detailed list on everything.
Stop teasing. Will Lionheart be available in season 1 or not? Or
Yeah.
phase 1 or
Yes. Yes.
Good.
So note that all of this information is unconfirmed unless Wowhead has insider information, which is possible. All of this information, all this phase-based itemization, items releasing, it's all based on this tweet. So while yes, the Wowhead's finally added this feature. It has actually existed in itemization.info for a few months, and also the other website I linked, the what is it? The 60upgrades.com. That website also filters by phase. So if you don't like Wowhead because it's clunky and it's full of ads, like feel free to use those other websites instead. The other thing is that like all this information could be inaccurate. We don't know what Blizzard's doing. Actually, we just have this really vague tweet from fucking Ion. That's all we have to go off of. So, take it with a grain of salt. Additionally, I want to remind you guys when I'm gonna post this leveling form for the leveling teams in our new to final boss channel. I'm gonna link that, and I want you guys to fill that out after this meeting's finished, or as soon as possible, and encourage everybody else to sign up too, especially people you want to level with, so we can start organizing this stuff.
Yeah, dude. Well done, man.
Yo, can you hear me?
Yeah.
All right. I
Mhm.
just want to say, like, from like level 30 to 40, you should try to do a lot of just grinding the fire elementals and air thigh and just fucking get it done.
Yeah, I agree. Like, especially classes that are ahead of the game, ahead of the curve. Um, Hunter. I mean, this is something I've mentioned before. Hunters, mages that are ahead of the curve. Pick your favorite warrior. Kill elementals in Arathi enough to get hit their Whirlwind Axe, and then mail them their charms for Whirlwind Axe, and they'll probably repay you with dungeons for whatever items you need. You know, think about that stuff. That's how you make friends with tanks early.
Also, hunters and warlocks, Moradin runs. If you sold them, bring a warrior for the ring. That's pretty fucking good.
Yeah, I mean, so that's actually an item that tanks would probably actually want at this point too, based on the new meta. But anyway,
Hey,
what's up?
if I can interject here, I'm hearing a lot in this meeting about, hey, here's a cool thing you can do, if you're ahead of the curve for this person or for this person. It's great that we're saying them here, but can we compile these into lists like, hey, I want to help out the warriors. Here's a list of all the things that a general player can do to help the warriors in the guild, or hey, I want to help the healers, something like that. Just a place we can go to have these written down because we're going to forget them.
Yeah, of course, and we will have something before launch like that. A lot of these things will be reiterated before, uh, for the or like during the class role meetings, but also, I'm gonna have like a spreadsheet for the different squads or whatever for raids, and that you'll be a part of it before launch, right? Your name will be on a list somewhere, like you'll be part of the farm team or whatever, and then there'll be a priority list of what items need to be farmed. Like fire elemental or fire will be at the top, for example, whatever, and then like whirlwind axe charms will be at the top, and it'll correlate with the class or something like optimal to farm it or whatever, or when is optimal to farm it, or like some kind of little blurb about what is important about this item and why you should farm it, or items that you should keep while you level because they're progression important. You know, whatever. I mean, there's all kinds of shit like that. But we'll definitely have documentation. The problem is our guild, especially our guild, is really bad about actually reading the things that we create and like being active engaged with them. And what I need from you guys.
Gain 2 chins. Yo, shut up, son.
All right. So what I need from you guys is to actually be active with these things. I know, like, I probably do too much in terms of trying to get you filling out different forms and whatever. And you probably think I'm selling your information to Google or something, but I'm not. Like, this is all stuff to make the guild better, make the game better for us.
And to say one more thing, soon or in the next couple of days, if not over the weekend, I'm gonna have make a sign up sheet for Hydraxi and Rep to set up gang teams.
All right, this will be it for the meeting. If anybody wants to talk to me one on one, I'll be around for the next 3 hours or so. And thanks for coming, guys. I really appreciate the showing. We had at peak, I think we had 33 concurrent viewers in the stream, and then we have a lot of people in the channel. So I'm really happy with the turnout. Again, make sure you guys fill out that leveling spreadsheet when I post it.
So in regards to leveling, just one last thing. This has been said before, but I want to keep pushing it. I think the most important thing you want to consider is, and this might be late for that because I know people have kind of picked their classes and stuff, but you want to stand behind the class you're gonna play. Like we've kind of talked, we've hit on alts a bit and stuff like that. But if you're, you know, picking a class based on trying something new, or you have like uncertainty about the longevity of you playing that class, and you'd be more comfortable playing something that you're used to playing, like that should be kind of looked at, I would say. Like you definitely want to think long term, think what's, you know, what's going to be most enjoyable for you. And like in a lot of cases, like people sometimes they like to put the guild in front of themselves, which is obviously admirable, but I mean that could hurt you in the long run, you know, playing a class that you're not necessarily that engaged in or whatever. So that's something just, you know, there's always going to be, it's never going to be concrete which is the best class for you to play, but for a lot of people it is. And like I would definitely say stick to your guns when it comes to things like that. And as for actually leveling itself, leveling on like a fresh server is actually a pretty good experience. I know a lot of people have probably done that. And for me personally, when I leveled on a fresh 60 server at 1 times the rates at the start, it was a really good experience. Probably like the best experience I've ever had on a private server. So make the best of it. Yeah, you don't have to zerg it like crazy, like we've already talked about. And lastly, when it comes to leveling, you're going to want to hang on to any kind of materials you get for sure. That includes BOEs, and BOEs are going to be a big thing early on in content. So, and that's anything from greens, green weapons, green shields, green gear. You're looking for pieces with like stamina